So I'm getting ready to move my PORCELLIO ornatus from their old bin into their new bin. It's a little more than double the size, but I thought it was pretty crazy. I haven't really taken this thing apart in a while, so I really wanted to show you guys what was going on in here. These guys have been really busy over the winter, as you will see in a second. We got crazy amounts of ornatus in here. I'm actually going to switch everything out. My God, look at them all. Bopping them all over the place. Come here, you. Sorry, bad camera work. I'm trying to do two things at once here. You know what? I need to get my, I need to get a tripod for this probably. But, I mean, you can see it's just crazy in here. We just had a boom of, wow, look at these guys. Holy smokes. So I'm going to kind of set this here. A little big shell. Got to make sure we're clean there. Hey, they're all over me. They're all over me. These guys consume their cuttle bone at a fantastic rate. It's amazing. I actually just keep them in there and use them as like a little food dish. Put that there. That there. I gotta look because I am developing some grain mites in here. They're not harmful. It's just weird. They have a really weird smell and I don't like it. See them? So I'm gonna try to remove all the substrate except for what has the grain mites. I don't know how easy that's gonna be. It's probably gonna be a pain in the butt. But actually, I think I'm gonna move this down here, like so. And then we'll begin. God dang, look at them all. Holy Nikes. Alright. Pick this up and just, oh, that felt weird. Oh, that felt so weird. Yeah, that was odd. It was literally moving when I picked it up. Oh man, there's so many ornatus in here. And what I've been doing is selectively pulling. I don't know if you can see them right now, but there's a few of them that seem to have a reddish coloration. And I thought when they were younger, ooh, there's a dead guy. Yeah, they're just out competing each other like crazy. So I thought they had a brownish reddish coloration. I thought maybe it was just because of their food. The food that I give them is it's a tropical fish food, so sometimes it turns them colors, but no, I had a couple of adults that still retained that brownish coloration, so I've been separating and selectively breeding them for that brownish coloration. Don't get it a whole lot in like a really pretty colored brown. It's mostly really muted, but I pulled some of the brightest adult individuals that I had, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I'm going to put the camera down and finish this up, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like when I'm done. So yeah, here's what it looks like after I moved everybody in. You got action going on under here already. I just put this thing in there. You got everybody huddling under. You got tons of individuals up here. It's crazy. It's freaking pandemonium. Springtails under here. Oh, there's one of the red individuals I was telling you guys about right there. Reddish brown. I mean, it's wild. These guys are just, they were so ready for this, and I feel bad for not having done it sooner. But now it's done. If you guys have noticed, you don't really see any leaf litter in here. And that is just because these guys, I don't give them much leaf litter. They don't seem to really eat it. I keep them really well fed anyways, so it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna try something different and really try to use these little compartments for food, as well as these as little food trays, just to kind of keep the food off the substrate, because I never had anything but issues with that. You know, putting the food directly on the substrate is not good. It's how you get grain mites and all kinds of fungus gnats and all kinds of crap like that. I mean, this population in here is just booming, but You never know. So I'm gonna try and just kind of give like little pinches of food strategically. And then I think these guys are just gonna go bananas for it. Maybe, ooh, this looks like a perfect spot. Up off the substrate. Look at that. It's kind of all on there. So I feed these guys a lot, and I mean, they seem to eat most of it. This will probably be pretty much gone in the next couple of days, if not today. We'll see. I don't know if they're all stressed out now or what. But yeah, typically this amount of food lasts these guys a couple of days, and I mean, there's just so many juveniles in here. It's insane. A lot of my adults died off, and I use them to seed some tanks. So this is the new generation. Hopefully it'll be a little while before I have to make it any bigger. This thing's like 18 by 24-ish, somewhere in there. I get a couple inches of substrate in the bottom. I actually mixed up a really nice substrate and then figured out that getting them in here, I ended up dumping most of the old substrate in. So just wanted to let you guys see what my Ornatus yellow dot culture looks like. Super healthy. These guys are amazing to watch. Look at mom taking care of all the babies. Oh, where'd she go? She got all shy. But cool stuff. So I feel like yesterday maybe I didn't do the greatest idea of explaining what I was doing. I had actually some of my most prolific species of isopods needed an enclosure upgrade, and I kind of filmed it, but I didn't really I wanted to just do like kind of a 24-hour update into how everybody's doing now, what the new enclosures look like, and just after everybody's kind of settled in a little bit, give you guys a glimpse at what's going on now. So these are my PORCELLIO ornatus yellow dot. We recently had a really big explosion in juveniles and babies, and I actually pulled out a lot of the adults, so you won't see a whole lot of adults in here. But this is 24 hours after moving them to a 28 quart container from about a 6 quart container. So they were long overdue for an upgrade, and this is what everything looks like now. They've got lots of new hiding spots. You can really see the difference. See the gray individuals there, and then the ones that have the reddish coloration. You can really see it when they're right next to each other like that. So I've been pulling out these redder colored individuals and selectively breeding them for that color. But we've got just about everywhere we look, we've got large concentrations here. I put them some egg crate in so that they could hide under on top of it and also use it as a food tray. I don't know if you guys remember, well, of course you remember, it was 2 seconds ago. If you looked at this is how much they've consumed. It was probably a little less than 24 hours. They haven't touched this as much, but they're definitely working on it. So these guys are super prolific. I started about, gosh, probably 6 months ago with a really small culture of adults, and I lucked out because I got all adults, but they immediately started breeding, and now we've just got massive numbers in here of these guys. The PORCELLIO ornatus yellow dot, and I just dumped right onto the substrate, but that's okay. It was mostly gone. So you can see some frass there. We feed them tropical fish food, some, what are they called, river shrimp. They're, from what I can tell, they eat almost exclusively proteins, but we supplement them with calcium in the form of cuttle bone, like it's the bone from a cuttlefish. They strip those things down really quickly. This is just a shell here, but they make quick work of just about any protein source that I put in here. I've given them little bits of cooked chicken. They love that. This is a special treat. But the ornatus, I'm not 100% sure how to utilize them in a bioactive enclosure yet. I'm a little bit leery of putting them in with any soft-bodied animals like frogs, just because if they got hungry and the numbers got too big and the frogs were too small, they could absolutely devour a frog in a matter of hours if they really wanted to, in great enough numbers. But they're really interesting to watch. They're super active. They're not really all that shy. You know, a lot of the Armadillidium species spend a lot of time hiding underneath things, and these guys do hide. I mean, don't get me wrong, they definitely hide. But as you can see, they are out and about a lot, and it's not because they don't have places to hide. I've probably quadrupled the surface area of their hiding spots in this enclosure. So they've got plenty of places to go. But we're going to move through and look at the other 3 species that I set up yesterday and how those guys look. This culture contains the PORCELLIO SEVILLE. These are a Spanish isopod. And these guys are also developed. They're throwing some interesting color variations as well. We've got some red individuals there too. They are slightly larger, I think, than the ORNATUS when they're fully grown. There's a adult right there. They're pretty good sized, and they look really, really similar to like a PORCELLIO hoffmannsegii. They don't get quite as big, but they do look very similar. I'm guessing we're gonna have lots of individuals in here. They love this thing. Not quite as many as I thought. They must have moved to the underneath of this egg crate that I put in there. If you remember the video I shot yesterday, there's a ton of them hiding underneath. They love their egg crate. They also really love their little eggshell that I put their food. I don't really want to lift this thing up because they're not as prolific eaters as the ORNATUS. You can see they've still got a lot of food left in here, so I'm not going to lift anything else up right now. Really, just because I don't want to disturb anybody. But here we got a whole bunch of activity going on under here. They seem like they're doing really well, and hopefully they continue to grow. I'm going to have to figure out what to do with them. I just know if I lift this up underneath, there's going to be a ton, because they were so overcrowded. They were in a really small enclosure yesterday, up until that point. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, well, here, let me see if I can do this without spilling anything or shaking anybody loose. But yeah, they're all under there. I was thinking to myself, where the heck did everybody go? But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them, probably a few hundred easy under here. Easily a few hundred. So, moving right along, those were PORCELLIO SEVILLE, Spanish isopods. Also very active and interesting to watch. And Yokai wants to say hi. Buddy, Yokai, say hi. He's always interested in whatever I'm doing. So this is how I set up the new enclosure for the PORCELLIO hoffmannsegii. These are the titans. These guys get the largest. Well, they are the largest of all of the Spanish species that we have here. Here is a really nice female, fully grown. Here's a male over here. They're all pretty good sized. We had a boom in babies. There's a little piece of shed right there. It's kind of interesting. Looks like the little guy was maybe eating it. These guys were drastically overcrowded as well. So, we got a nice little springtail boom there. For whatever reason, these tropical white springtails seem to love the hoffmannsegii bin, and I'm not entirely sure what the connection is. These guys have usually I give these guys a lot of ventilation and keep it a little on the drier side, but the moisture, it's about 50-50. So this side's going to be drier, this side's going to be wetter. Springtails usually like it pretty wet, but I keep my hoffmannsegii probably a little bit more humid than most people would, and I think that's probably part of the reason why I have such a population of springtails in here. I'm gonna pick up this wood, see what we can see there. We got a whole bunch under the wood there. They really seem to like it. I'm not sure that they're eating it. I don't really see any frass under there, but they love to hide under it. Careful. The cool thing about these guys is I was throwing some piebald, the last generation, not these guys, probably most of these guys. I've removed all the individuals, and I'm going to do a video about them, but we were throwing some really interesting mutations, and I'm trying to prove it out to see if it's a genetic trait that I can isolate. So instead, those individuals, instead of having the white kind of skirt around the edge with the solid gray coloration, the individuals that I found had some pretty nice patches of stark white mixed in. So that's piebaldism, as far as I can tell. Or it could have just been a non-genetic mutation with some sort of fluctuation in the environment. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to prove it out right now. So we will look at that in the future. I'm not going to lift this one up just because I have so much food on there for them. I don't want to spill it onto the substrate. I think it's pretty important, I've found, to try to keep all the food supply up off of the substrate to avoid infestations of mites and things like that. The springtails love to eat this fish food as well, so we'll see them making their way up onto the tops of the wood so they can feed on that as well. This is the Armadillidium maculatum bin. I moved these guys not because they were overcrowded, but really because I hoped they would become overcrowded. These are one of my favorite Armadillidium species, and I just wanted to give them plenty of room to spread out and multiply. I wasn't having the greatest luck in the beginning with the maculatum. I'm not sure exactly why, but they just weren't doing so good. I think I was down to 2 maculatum at one point, but they are breeding pretty prolifically at this point. I mean, I counted, and at one point I only found 2 in my entire enclosure there. But they have definitely picked up the pace. They're doing a lot better than they were. We're even throwing some pudding colored morse. You see there, you can kind of tell that some of them are a little browner with white stripes than they are blacker with white stripes. So at a certain point, I'm going to isolate those and begin a new culture with just the pudding colored individuals, because I think it's kind of neat to go ahead and isolate some of that stuff. Plenty of springtails under here. A couple of the little babies. We had a nice little breeding ground around here someplace where like a little nursery where, oh, they're there. These little babies. Hey, babies. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. Put you back. But these guys, one of the other reasons I moved them is because that I had an infestation that seemed to have a pretty interesting effect. I had these beetles in, and you know, I'm not sure exactly what they were. They looked like mealworms or superworms or something, but they were burrowing through this piece of wood here, and I would get these beetles, and you know, I mean, I wasn't sure where they came from, probably just because I put a piece of wood in that I didn't, you know, properly sterilize or something like that. But it was interesting that around the same time that I began to notice the beetles population rise is when I noticed the boom in offspring for the maculatum. So I was down to almost no maculatum, and then I adjusted a couple of things and didn't really notice much of a change. But then almost exactly the time when I started to notice the beetles is when I began to notice that the maculatum were reproducing, and I was getting babies, you know, and they seemed to be thriving. I'm not sure if one had anything to do with the other. Maybe it was a symbiotic relationship, but at any rate, when I changed the substrate over from the old one, I removed all the larvae and all the beetles that I could find. I'm sure there's still a couple in here somewhere. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, number one, if it was a symbiotic relationship, that it could continue, but also that the larvae and the beetles weren't going to outcompete the maculatum for the food sources and things. So that was pretty important as well. So I took most of them out. I'm sure there's going to be a few left over, but I just wanted to make sure that the maculatum had a chance to repopulate you know, faster than the beetles did. But that's it. All 4 species put into some new tubs, and I keep most of the isopods on a heated rack, but if there's some of the populations are just getting too big for that. I don't really have the space for another rack, so I'm heating up the plant room to a tolerable temperature for the isopods, and they're all probably eventually going to go into bins about this size, and then I'm going to divide the cultures when they become too large for that. So just a quick update. Baba Booey to y'all, and have a great day.